Welcome to Fairy Tail, the new RPG from Gust and Koei Tecmo. Koei Tecmo Europe sent me a code ahead of release so I could tell you guys about it, so this is my review in progress. I'm currently 11 hours into the game and I'd say I'm about halfway through. I can see which chapter I'm on and how many chapters are left, and I wanted to give you guys something before the game's release, but I probably won't have the full review ready until Monday. There should be some post-game stuff to do, plus there's the Naruto DLC coming out, so if you're really looking forward to this game, here's what I think of it so far. If you're still on the fence by the end of it, review should be out on Monday. This is a single player game and pre-order bonuses are still available until August 12th, so there really is no rush in buying it. You can take your time and think about it. I should also let you know that I'm not a Fairy Tail fan. I tried watching it 3 times and ended up dropping it every single time. I really like the character design, I really like their abilities, I think the whole concept is really cool, but I feel like the show is a bit heavy on fan service, not only with female characters but also the plot itself. I mean, it's a meme at this point that the power of friendship overcomes all adversities in Fairy Tail, and that really bothered me every single time, and you can tell that this is a Fairy Tail game right from the start. You have this boss fight / tutorial, and this boss is way too strong. Natsu goes full power and his attacks just don't have any effect. On top of that, the boss powers up even more, so these guys shouldn't even stand a chance, but they end up defeating him because of reasons? Through the power of plot, attacks are now super effective. This makes every fight have no stakes. It hypes up enemies as all-powerful, only to then power them down with no explanation, making the plot hyper-predictable because it favors the shonen tropes over consistency. Fairy Tail is a show that constantly breaks its own rules, and I find it hard to be committed to a long-running show like that. This is not to hate on Fairy Tail fans, but I know you guys will ask why I dropped Fairy Tail because you have asked it before, and this is pretty much the reason why. And also, I think you should know how I stand in relation to Fairy Tail before I give you my opinion on the game. But yeah, this very much feels like Fairy Tail narratively. Not just in the main story, but the side missions as well. And of course, the fan service. It's all there. So this takes place during the Grand Magic Games and Tartaros arcs. I didn't watch these arcs, I dropped the show before getting there, and I'm still at the Grand Magic Games arc in the game. The Fairy Tail Guild members have been trapped in a time bubble for 7 years, so when they return, their guild hall is a shell of what it once was, and they have to rebuild the guild from scratch, which is the perfect way to set up an RPG. You gotta level yourself up as well as your guild back up to the top. Some of this is done through main missions, but a lot of it is done through side activities. In fact, the story missions are often gated until you reach a certain guild rank, so the game asks you to do the side content constantly. But that's not necessarily bad. This game has a lot of systems and a lot of different things to level up, and you can do this with several different activities. For instance, you can look at your request board and pick up a side mission. The writing on these side missions is super lazy. You can see it by the second mission that they're not even trying. So a bunch of sketchy guys doing sketchy stuff. Please do something. But you know, that's just a way of getting more renown, which are these guild points that you can use to rank up your characters, giving them new passive slots or abilities, and get money that you need to do pretty much everything. You can upgrade your guild, for instance, with different facilities. Each facility can be then leveled up by gathering specific materials and spending some extra money. And every facility gives you passive bonuses in return, or more items on the store, amongst many other benefits. And every time you do something like this to get renown or build up your guild rank goes up, which has been by far the most satisfying thing about this game. It has enough meters and gauges that no matter what you do, you're always leveling something up. Be it your guild, your characters, your bonds, there's a lot. But it also doesn't feel overwhelming. The game guides you well towards all of these goals. In fact, overall, this game feels like a very light RPG. Not because it doesn't have many systems, but because it is extremely forgiving, and it feels like you can just invest in whatever you do, without feeling like you've wasted your money or resources, because it is very generous with the amount of money given per quest and the amount of resources you gather. Granted, I'm still not at the end game. I bet some resources are going to be very rare, but so far I've just been buying everything and it's working great. When I run out of money, I do a couple of missions and I'm making bank again. There's this whole gem system that I didn't even get into yet, but you can spend some time crafting gems, finding new recipes, and equipping them on characters. All these gems have different effects, so you can kind of customize characters to your liking, and that's another thing that you can spend some time working on. In combat, the game is also very forgiving. If you die, there's a quick retry button that just just starts the battle over without any health penalty, you don't lose items, the loading screen is pretty fast, and honestly, combat feels a bit too easy. I have defeated level 50 enemies as a level 20. So I think for the rest of my playthrough, I'm gonna bump up the difficulty from normal to hard, and I'll let you know how that goes on the full review. But yeah, combat has some cool ideas. You fight enemies on the grid, and it's not really like Fire Emblem or anything of the sort. You're not moving your own characters. It is a traditional turn-based battle system, but instead of opponents being in front of you, they are on this grid. And every attack you have affects different squares on the grid. Plus, there are elemental resistances and weaknesses that you need to pay attention to, so it ends up being a pretty cool system. I'm sure it's not new, but it's certainly not common, and I've been enjoying it so far. It is a bit easy, as I said, but I'll bump up the difficulty and hopefully it will challenge me a bit more. Some of your attacks can even force the enemies to move on the board, so you can set up the position with one character so the next one has the perfect placement to launch their strongest ability. And since Fairy Tail characters are pretty much tied to a single element, for instance, Natsu is fire, Gray is ice, etc., it's also interesting to build the different teams you take into combat, because you're not only thinking of the traditional RPG team compositions like having a tank, a healer, a DPS, you're also taking their elements into consideration, which gives it a nice depth that I hope the game forces me to explore a bit more. So far I could just brute force my way through it, no need to pay much attention to all that. In fact, there's an auto battle mode where you just press a button and the game just plays itself. That's how casual this RPG is. And as you attack, you build up that Fairy Tail meter to unleash crazy damage to the whole grid, and that usually just ends the encounter, unless you're in a boss fight or something. I also want to point out another one of my favorite things about this game is how fast traveling is from one place to another. Some quests are simple fetch quests or asking you to go into another area to kill monsters, and side missions like this can be very repetitive, but the loading times in this game are super fast. I'm playing it on a PS4 Pro, no SSD, so the game feels super well optimized, and the quests end up not feeling so tedious because you can really travel from one point to the next very fast. In fact, if you're traveling within the same area, it's almost instant. Just open up your map, select a destination, and you're there within seconds. And the quests are also extremely well tracked, both on your menu and your map. It's very easy to see what you need to do, what you need to grab. It's not obscure at all about its objectives, which somehow reinforces this idea I have that this is a very light and casual RPG. You can only pick up one quest at a time, but given how fast you travel in and out of the guild hall, this ends up not being a problem at all. Presentation-wise, you might have seen some of these very good looking cutscenes in trailers and whatnot. So far, I've had like 5 of these within the first 11 hours of gameplay, so they're a very small part of the game. Most of the cutscenes are in-engine and look like this. Not everything is voice acted, and some of it you can tell that it's intentional. They didn't have the time or the budget to do it, but other times it's odd because characters just don't have a voice. Check out this moment during a story cutscene. That doesn't look intentional at all. The game is in Japanese with English subs, no English voice option, and I gotta say Natsu during combat is a bit more annoying than I remembered. And it's not just combat even. While exploring, you can pick up these items, and I cannot tell you how many times I've heard this same line. They only recorded one voice line per character, so that's what we're using. I am constantly switching characters mainly so I don't have to hear the same voice line over and over. But it's actually cool that you can swap the character you want to walk around with. In fact, the game sometimes requires you to do this because some quests are specific to some characters. Natsu isn't always the protagonist, and that's an awesome change of pace. Now, I don't know how many characters are playable because I haven't finished the game, and honestly, I think that would be a spoiler to tell you because I really like being surprised whenever someone new joins the party. So yeah, that's Fairy Tail. If I had to summarize my opinion on the game so far, it's an RPG that totally does its job, but doesn't really innovate in any way. It's not a game that has particularly grabbed me quite yet, but it's been good for that kind of mindless RPG grind, just doing quests, seeing numbers go up, filling up meters, ranking up characters. It's been a good one of those, shut off my brain and level up some anime dudes. But it also doesn't feel like a full-priced game, dude. I legit thought this was like $30, but then I checked the store and it's full price, so that's a bit rough. And if I had to to review it right now, I'd say there's absolutely no reason for you to buy this if you're not a Fairy Tail fan. There are a lot better RPGs out there. For Fairy Tail fans though, I don't know what to tell you. You'll probably like it. It does feel like Fairy Tail and everything I don't like about Fairy Tail. Look, I'm not a Fairy Tail fan myself, so I don't really know what a fan would be looking for in a game like this, but it's totally serviceable, I'd say. For more details, by the time you've watched this video, I probably have streamed this game on Twitch already, so I recommend going there and watching the latest stream because I bet people had a ton of questions about it. My next stream is on Tuesday. I don't know if Fairy Tail is what I'll be playing. I haven't decided yet, so just drop by. Link to Twitch down below. I always love talking about anime games, so it really doesn't matter what I'm playing. I just stream to chat and hang out with you guys. And as always, thank you very much for watching. My name is Globku, and I'll see you next time. Bye!